Hey, this is Stephanie.
And I'm Nina.
And you're listening to Live by the Spirit podcast.
Whoopee up, y'all.
Hi.
Once again, we are in Stephanie's bed.
It's the comfiest place to be.
I do not disagree.
One of my favorite quotes of all time. I'm going to say it, and you're going to have to guess what it is. I don't think I'll get it, but my bed is my friend. It gives me soft, warm bed hugs.
Oh, what's that from?
It's from a TV show. One
That
of my
doesn't help
favorite
me.
childhood TV shows.
Is it from Hannah Montana?
It is from the last season when Miley was depressed about something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember hearing that, and I've quoted that to this day. Whenever I'm like, I want to go to my bed. My bed is my friend. It gives me soft, warm bed hugs.
Oh my gosh.
That, and I'll never forget Wizards of Waverly Place. Someone asked Alex if she was going to the dance. She was like, I forgot like how she led up to it. She's like, she was like, what am I wearing? My couch. Because she was just gonna stay at home. So I just thought that was funny. Anyways,
So this week, we decided that we were going to talk about clean TV shows.
yes.
Or like wholesome TV shows. TV shows that you can watch and you don't have to worry about seeing any nudity. The language is pretty much majority clean.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, or and there's like no sex, maybe like alluding to that but never shown or anything.
Yeah.
So we have a little list.
I think what's crazy is like when I could even say when I was in like high school, teen shows they weren't like the best. Like I'm thinking of like One Tree Hill and Gossip Girl and all the shows like I was watching when I was in high school. Like the characters were having sex and drinking a lot, which wasn't good, but the language wasn't an issue and there was no nudity in it.
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays these teen shows have gotten so ridiculous. Like Nina and I have read the Summer I Turned Pretty books, and we've watched the show, and the one thing that I just feel like honestly kind of takes away is how much language is used.
Yeah.
And while there hasn't been any nudity in it, and I'm praying that season 3 will stay the same. I don't need to see nothing, because we also watch this now with our guy friends. We don't need them to see nothing either. It takes away when every other word that certain characters, one character in particular that we don't like, says a curse word every other word. Yeah,
the F word is far overused. I want to say in the book there is maybe 1 or 2 swear words,
times.
like very infrequent throughout the whole book series.
I'd rather shoot my head with a nail gun.
But that doesn't swear.
I know.
That's just, I'd rather shoot myself in the head with a nail gun repeatedly. But yeah.
Sassy Conrad's my favorite.
Yeah.
Conrad.
But it's like nowadays, like shows like that are like Euphoria. I was warned very early on because everybody's talking about the show. I was like, oh, I wonder what that's about. And my one friend was like, do not watch it. You will see a bunch of wee-wees. I said, I don't want to see a bunch of wee-wees. I will not be partaking in that.
Yeah. I mean, I won't lie to you. I watched Euphoria kind of way back before I really started dedicating myself to God. And I feel like even I've done way more growth this year. But it's definitely not a good show. And like they say, well, it's like, it's not advertised to kids. It's like, it is about kids in high school that is advertising it towards children.
Yeah, when you advertise, like when the show is about high school students, that's where your target audience is going to be. Like when you're watching like a show like Friends where they're all older, you see like people that are in their 20s watching that show, 20s, 30s, like that type of age demographic, because that's the age demographic of your main characters. If your main characters are children, like babies, that's what that's what you're gonna put in front of them. Like, think about the shows we like grew up watching on Disney Channel. Zach and Cody. You know,
them. Were you a Cody or a Zach girl?
It was a Cody girl.
I was a Zach girl.
It was
Look
so funny.
At us.
Yeah, I was literally having this conversation today. It was just so funny. But or like Hannah Montana. Like, think about all these shows we watched growing up. They were all our age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you're a little younger watching somebody a little older. Like, they were all within that high school, middle school to high school range. I think that's, like you said, that's going to be your target audience.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we just had this conversation off, I was about to say off camera. We're not on camera, off recording.
Off video.
Off the mic.
No, off audio.
Off audio. But I feel like Disney Channel is still relatively clean when it comes to maybe even Nick. I think the thing now that I have more fears with is, and this is going to open up a can of worms, but we're going to open it because this is what we believe in. But there is a lot of homosexuality now in kids shows, and transgender is now a topic in a lot of children's shows. Even as young as like Disney Junior, I remember getting
which Disney Junior show?
They turned the Muppets into like the Baby Muppets. Which
they
is
made
so
a
cute.
Baby Muppets show?
Yes, but one of them, I forgot what his name is. He's blue and has a big nose. I forgot what his name, like something with an O, like Oswald or something like that.
What the?
But they were like doing something and he wanted to wear a dress. And they told him the entire time, it's like, oh, you can't wear a dress. And then finally at the end, it's like, oh, if you want to wear a dress, you should wear a dress. Like, there's no harm in you as a boy wearing a dress. And I'm like, this is literally designed for 3-year-olds. What? And then it's so funny because when we were younger, Zach and Cody had an episode where the twins dressed up like a girl to enter a beauty pageant so that way they could get money to get bikes.
Yes. I remember that.
And like it's so interesting because you'll see the video on TikTok of Carrie, the mom, asking Zach why he dressed up like a girl. And he's like, so we can win money for bikes. And she's like, oh, thank God. And then everyone's like, this would not fly today. Because she's like, thanking goodness that she's not having to deal with that.
Dude, there was literally a conversation I was having with our friend Georgie earlier today. And I was talking about like a tradition that my family has for New Year's. And one tradition that we have every year is right after the ball drops on New Year's, we watch Holiday Inn, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've said that before. But the thing about that is, that movie, I think, was from 1942. I'm pretty sure is the year that it came out. And in that, there is content that you could not produce today.
Yeah.
So, but it's not in a negative connotation. And that's the thing that makes me mad. People will not watch that movie because essentially when they're celebrating Abraham Lincoln's birthday, his band is dressed in blackface because they're representing the slaves, and he's Abraham Lincoln showing and singing a song about how he set the slaves free. People watch that now and are like, how dare they do this and be like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, one, look at the time when this movie was produced, and two, they're not doing anything like, they're not producing it in a negative way. And so it bothers me that people look at movies or like shows that were produced far long ago and then are like, you can't watch that because it discredits all this, that.
I will say, like, I think that blackface is disrespectful. But like, I agree with what you said. Like, that was a different time. Actually, I was on TikTok earlier today, and this woman was talking about. I didn't realize Judy Garland had done a movie where she did blackface.
I didn't know that.
And there was, but like, what we don't realize is the way studios worked back then is so different from how studios
100%.
work now. One thing is that these actors signed contracts, and so they had to do the projects that the studio told them to do, or they would be breaching their contract.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, whether or not they wanted to do a film or not, they had to. And so she was like saying how, and then was showing like how Judy Garland had done all these other things for like throughout her life to almost kind of redeem herself from doing that, which I think is awesome. But yeah, like, one of my favorite movies growing up was Annie, Get Your Gun, and I cannot feel like I can't talk about that movie with some people because there is the whole premise of, a big part of Annie Get Your Gun is about Annie Oakley. Annie Oakley, the real Annie Oakley, got adopted by an actual Indian chief. But in like what she was doing in the show was all these Indians were in the show, and it was like these cowboys like killing the Indians.
Yeah.
And then in the musical, in the movie, there's like a whole scene where she's getting adopted by I think it's Chief Sitting Bull, and she sings a song called "And I'm an Indian Too," and she's like a Sioux. And it's just like making fun of Indians.
And see, that's the thing. When you are doing it in a way that is being disrespectful, like that is not okay. And I agree that it's not okay to do that now. Yeah. But you also need to look at the time.
But you have to look at the time. So it's like I think what sucks is like I love that movie, and I'll probably will show my kids that movie one day, but I'll have to have the conversation with them like my parents had the conversation with
me.
Like
what is appropriate,
like,
what's not.
You cannot go up to someone and sing this song. Like that's not
okay.
Oh,
yeah, no.
You can't, type of thing. But anyways, we got off on a little tangent.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, it is, I think it is, I still like kind of going back to what we were originally talking about. I think like for the most part, certain kids shows are still wholesome, but it's those other things like
pushing an agenda of any certain kind. Yeah.
And so what makes me sad is our friends that have children. One day we're going to have children. We're really going to have to monitor what they watch. I think our parents were almost kind of lucky in the sense where they didn't necessarily have to watch what we watched. I remember there were several TV shows and movies that were up for debate in my household. I had to watch Wizards of Waverly Place with an adult because that had witchcraft in it.
I wasn't allowed to watch that show at first.
Yeah.
And I also didn't have cable, so like it would only be if we were at my grandparents', and by the time we were allowed to watch it, once my parents knew what the show was about, it was basically over anyways, so it didn't really matter.
I was allowed to watch That's So Raven, but but again, my dad will always say, it's like, well, that was your mom. Like, I didn't know any of this was going on until way after the fact. And so, yeah. And then I was never allowed to watch Harry Potter until I was way, way older. But yeah, so I am just thankful that we had really good, at least like really good kid shows. Like we had like Bear in the Big Blue House, like The Wiggles. I just recently showed our friend's child Arlo the Doodle Bops.
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember the Doodle Bops?
Yes.
I showed him the Doodle Bops and he loved it so much.
I remember like a lot of what I watched when I was younger is I watched Arthur all the time.
I watched Arthur maybe once in a blue moon.
Well, like, because there were, like, we had only certain channels.
Yeah.
So, like, we would watch Arthur and Word Girl. And, like, I remember on PBS.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing that, this was actually brought up to me, like, 2 months ago. This scripture, my friend was telling me about it. And I thought it was good to highlight, when talking about this topic is Psalm 101:3 says, I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. I will hate what faithless people do. I will have no part in it. So it's keeping in mind that when we're watching certain things, is it of content that would be pleasing to the Lord? Is it 100%. Something that, you would watch with your parents? Like, is it like, that's a good thing for me. 'Cause like, in my household, like we don't like things with any sort of sexual content or anything like that. So it's like in my house, like if I would watch it with my parents, I know that it's something that I would be okay to watch. But like, is it okay? Is it like Christ-like in a sense? Not saying it has to point back to Christ, but is it of good morale and good character and all the things?
Yeah. And I think it's so nice that I had a conversation with my dad not too long ago about this. I think it's so awesome that we're starting to have these mindsets now because, and not putting my parents on blast. So I have awesome parents, but when I was like 3 years old, I could tell you why Ross and Rachel were on a break. It was like Friends was always on in our household. Friends and like Everyone Loves Raymond.
Everyone loves Raymond.
And those are like, in a sense, like there's no cursing in it. You don't see any nudity. So in that sense, I guess they're considered wholesome. But particularly Friends, like the topic of sex is the main topic of discussion in almost every single episode.
Yeah.
it obviously they're adults, they're not Christians, that's that type of thing.
Yeah.
So like I understand it from that point, but obviously being 3 years old, I probably shouldn't have been watching it. But
yeah. All right. Do you want to get to our list?
Sure.
All right. Number 1, my favorite TV show of all time,
Also
Boy
one
Meets
of my
World.
Also one of my favorites.
I love this show so much. Boy Meets World is like one show that, and we don't need to explain all of these shows, but I think this one specifically, because there's no sexual content. Like the only sexual content I can think of is like
After
when Corey and Topanga get married.
Yeah.
And it's not like they show anything. It's not even like really anything inappropriate. And like the cool thing about Boy Meets World is you're growing up with him from when he's 11 till he's like 20. So that's like the super cool thing about that show. And there's so many life lessons and great parenting tips in that show. And it's awesome.
I mean, Girl Meets World is probably the cringiest TV show I've ever watched in my life. But even then, you watch them in parenthood too. Like that's the cool thing about those characters is like you spent your life with them, and like I was alive. I guess both of us were alive when the show ended. That show was always on. I remember like right before I left for school. Like same with Saved by the Bell, which is also on our list.
I think it ended in 2000.
But what I love about Boy Meets World is, and some of I remember that. So Raven got into pretty heavy topics as well in a tasteful kid way, and I feel like at least from what I've seen nowadays, they don't do the same thing. But Saved by the Bell did, but Boy Meets World hit some heavy topics. Like it dealt with homelessness. It dealt with Sean was in a cult at one point.
That is one of Jonah and I's favorite episodes. It is so good.
Yeah, the hug. When
and
he's
that's
like, this is a hug. This is a real hug.
And that actually like brings up the topic of God in that episode too. Gets brought up. And there's another episode later on when Eric has this whole thing and he goes, God, why do I only talk to you when I need help?
Yeah.
And like there's that too. And I think it's super cool to like that they touch those pretty heavy topics. They talk about sex before marriage, like Topanga and Corey.
They waited.
And they talk. There's like an episode in season 4 where I think it's season 4. It's either season 4 or season 5 where it's season 4. And Sean has a girl spend the night because she's getting beat by her dad. And you don't know that at first. And Corey thinks it's because, they're having sex or whatever. And so he's like, maybe I want to take my relationship with Topanga to the next level. And then they have that whole conversation. And then it also talks about abuse in that episode as well.
And it's such a good show.
It's so good.
There's another one I wanted to talk about in comparison to, but we'll get to that one in a second.
Do you want to talk about the next one?
The next one is probably one of the reasons why Nina and I are so close.
That's actually really accurate.
One of them, I had never watched the show until about a year ago. Like I think last autumn was when I started this show. And I can't lie to you, it's cringy. But it's like a good cringy.
So good.
I don't think any of our guy friends would enjoy it, but we enjoy it. It's Anne with an E.
Oh, man.
I grew up. It's so interesting because I grew up watching Anne and Green Gables, the little short made-for-TV movies with my mom.
Me too.
And so I didn't realize until a few years ago that that's what it was based off of. And then it just always looked like a kid's show to me. So I never was like, I don't want to watch this. And then one day I was like, you know what? I have no new shows to watch. This is on my top recommended. There's only 3 seasons, 10 episodes each. Gonna watch it. I thought that the show ended like they knew it was gonna end.
No.
So I was like, okay, this will have a nice ending. And I will say, for it to have ended without them knowing, it does have somewhat of a good ending.
Yes. The ending, the last episode is a great episode, but we wish it would have continued.
Oh, 100%.
Because there was supposed to be more to the story.
Absolutely.
They didn't get renewed.
But so anyone listening, we will.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That was our original podcast idea, was gonna do
Anne with an E.
We were gonna break down every episode of Anne with the E and talk about it. Like we were gonna do a TV show review. Is what our original podcast was actually gonna be.
We do another one,
honestly.
But what I love most about Anne and Green Gables in and of itself is a very wholesome book.
There's like 7 of them. Anne of Green Gables, and then there's like Anne of Avonlea, and then there's a bunch of them, but there's like 7 of them. Or maybe 8.
It's about, if you guys don't know what Anne of Green Gables is, it's about an orphan named Anne. Anne with an E.
Shirley.
Anne Shirley. Cuthbert.
No, not Cuthbert yet.
Not Cuthbert yet. But she basically gets adopted by a brother and a sister who never got married, never had kids of their own.
And they're getting older. And the reason that she got adopted was because they mistakenly... They went to get a boy to help with the farm work, and she showed up. And
they ended up falling in love with her.
Yes, and they added her to the family.
And then it's just kind of her going, because she had been an orphan all of her life, to then all of a sudden having a family, and then trying to
make friends
and turn into society. But she also has such a vivid imagination.
Yes.
And coming from a Christian, my dad's always encouraged me to have a big imagination, because that's how we see into the spirit and how the Lord can work, is when we have. So there's obviously there's sometimes where she gets a little carried away.
She can talk a lot.
She can talk I thought I could talk.
Homegirl can talk. The first episode is an hour and a half of her talking.
Literally.
Like, I'm not kidding. But then every other episode is like 40 minutes and wonderful. So
and her and Gilbert Blythe.
Oh my gosh, Gilbert Blythe is, I would say, for me, I don't know if you would agree, I feel like you would, is my number one favorite fictional male character ever.
Awesome.
Especially the show version. Like, him in the show
he's so
is
good.
So awesome. And it's like, he, like,
letter.
you see the way that he, like, I can't. I won't even talk
literally
about it.
will
I'll
talk
go
for
on
an
a
hour.
rant,
We
so
both
we're
would.
not going to talk about it.
It is but again, it's such a wholesome show. It's it's in a different era. It was like
the 1800s.
Late
I think it's like
1800s.
1890 something. It's in the 1890s.
And it's in Canada. So
Nova Scotia.
Prince
Edward Island.
And it's so, but it's just so wholesome, because there's really, that was a different era of time. And so, but I think it's a great show for your children to watch. Like, I would gladly say to particularly any young girls, like, I think I would have loved that show when I was like 10 years old. I think it shows a lot about the importance of friendship.
Oh, 100%.
Hard work. Imagination is a great one, and also like being different in that regard, because again, Anne's very different because she's had to have this big imagination and all this stuff. I think it shows that being different in that regard is a good thing.
And I think we can really bounce off and say Little House on the Prairie right after that, because that is a different time as well, and that's a show that you follow those kids literally straight from the beginning all the way until they're older and married. And that's a show I watched.
Same.
And it's like, it is a really good show. It shows that, the family dynamic and just what goes on in like that good family. And it also shows that hard work, and it shows you a different lifestyle than what you live. So that's what I think is super cool about that show.
You get like that different like era.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
I will say, we're kind of jumping around our list.
Yes.
A big one for me growing up was Full House.
Yeah.
I am Stephanie Tanner. Let's face facts. Stephanie Tanner and I, we both love to talk. We both have a hard time lying. We both danced. Literally, there is a quote that she says, "I'm Stephanie. I'm just short." That is literally me to a T. I love Full House. Full House, I was going to go off, had some very similar lessons, just like Boy Meets World. I remember there was an episode dealing with abuse where Stephanie found out one of her classmates was getting abused.
Yeah, I remember that.
Was like, I have to keep it a secret, and ends up telling Uncle Jesse. I think it also shows such a beautiful, different type of family too, because not all families are going to look the same.
Yeah.
And I think that was
sure.
really beautifully done. I mean, I think a big episode for me, one that I always remember, is there's an episode in some of the later seasons where Stephanie almost gets in a car with 2 guys who are super reckless drivers, and DJ tells her not to, and basically and Stephanie's all mad at DJ, and then finds out that car got into a really terrible car accident, and like little things like that. And it's funny, it's cute, we've all watched it. My favorite episodes are of course the ones where they go to Disney World. Which Boy Meets World, they went to Disney World in episode 2, so yay.
Yes, episode 3. It's the second to last one of episode 3. It's called The Happiest Show on Earth.
So
Fun
cute.
facts.
But I just think that is, I just love Full House. That will always be one of my favorite TV shows. And then I think Fuller House was done super tastefully as well. And I love Candace.
Cameron Bure.
She's such an amazing Christian actress, and she's getting a lot of heat for the things she believes in. But I love that they were still able to come together to do the Fuller House. Yeah. With all of that, I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, totally. One of my all-time favorite TV shows, Psych. I love Psych so much. And I'll rope in The Mentalist with that as well, because I also love The Mentalist. So Psych is probably Psych and The Mentalist are my top 5, along with Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World is my number 1. I think Psych is my number 2. Mentalist is like my number 5. Amazing TV shows. There's not really any sexual content. There's very mild swearing, very mild. And it's just really fun. They're funny to watch. Like, it's just they're both like cop shows, essentially. Psych is about a fake psychic detective, and the Mentalist is about a guy who used to pretend to be a psychic, and now he helps out the basically like the FBI and to solve crimes. So those are 2 really good shows that I enjoy that are very mild content in that regard. Yep.
I've only watched like 1 or 2 episodes of Psych, and it was because of Jonah.
Me and Jonah, this is like literally our favorite. Yeah. And then we found out that our friends Josiah and Jillian also have the favorite TV show of Psych. And so like, it's so funny. Like, we'll quote things and like we'll all know it's from Psych. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. One show that I watched that Nina's not the hugest fan of, you just never really got into it. Gilmore Girls. It's Gilmore Girls season. It's autumn. I smell snow. I love Gilmore Girls. I think it is my sister's favorite TV show. So for years she was trying to get me to watch it, and I think it's just like, it always seems a little bit too mature for me. But I was a huge Sister of the Traveling Pants fan growing up. I read all the books. I watched both the movies. They were supposed to do a 3rd movie that they never ended up doing. I was super sad about it. But one of the girls is in Gilmore Girls. She plays Rory. And so I was like, I need to start watching the show. And I think I started like maybe in late high school. And now it's every fall. That's my fall show. I start normally mid-September. I started a little late this year. But yeah, it's so good. I will say, like, the topic of sex gets brought up every once in a while, but I think it's done in a tasteful way. Yeah. But we also do have to remember that these characters aren't, or at least that we know of, Christians. And so for them, they live in a very worldly way. I mean, the main character, Lorelai, got pregnant at the age of 16. But what I love about the show is it really showed, like, Lorelai, like, the whole premise of the show is Lorelai gets pregnant at 16. She lives with very rich parents. She doesn't want to be in that kind of world anymore, so she ends up leaving with Rory, gets a job as a maid, and kind of works her way up to managing an inn, and then one day opening her own inn. Yeah. And what I love about that storyline is it shows someone who doesn't like the circumstances that she's in life, because she knows she's not happy and she's not going to thrive, and she does something about it, and she's active in it. And I just think that's something that's so cool. It just shows, like, with a lot of hard work, your dreams can come true. Yeah. I just think it's a really cute show. I'm Team Jess, if you all were wondering. So yeah, but I think those characters go through a lot for sure. But yeah, I think it's a cute show. I definitely think that you could watch that with your family and stuff like that. But again, it does have those topics every once in a while.
But also with that, I would say, because of the way shows are now, it is very rare to have shows that either very rarely talk about that or have very mild, like, language. And I think that all of these shows either have very mild sexual content or very mild language. And so to me, to like both of us, that's like a win. Yeah. Because you don't find that anymore. So if it has that in it, it's like, yeah, not that that's necessarily great, but it's better than other circumstances, you know?
I was literally just watching one episode. It was like the main controversy was Rory gets kissed by her first boyfriend, Dean, and she is so stunned. It happened in the supermarket that she was holding a bag of cornstarch or a box of cornstarch, and she runs out of the market because she's so stunned that it happened. And she's like, I shoplifted. Oh no, I shoplifted.
That's so funny.
It's so funny. But I just think it's a cute show. To me, it's fall. I watch that show every fall. Team Jess all the way. And yeah.
The next one we'll hit kind of quick because we do have somewhere to be very shortly.
We got to go worship the Lord tonight.
We have a worship night at church, so we're trying to record this beforehand. So we'll hit the other one super quick. One that I will say, Alexa and Katie. It's a show on Netflix.
Which I've seen clips of it on TikTok.
It's a very, very wholesome show. No swearing. It's actually technically considered a children's show, which to me is funny because they're in high school at the time, and it's about this girl Alexa who gets diagnosed with cancer and her best friend Katie, and it just shows them as best friends like going through high school, and it's a great show. No content in that whatsoever.
Yeah, another one that we put was Last Man Standing, and I can also put Home Improvement with that because that is Tim Allen.
Yeah,
that's my dad's favorite show. Is Last Man Standing.
My dad and Jonah love that show.
I remember when that show first came out, I watched it every single week back when like we watched normal TV every single week, and I remember Nick Jonas guest starred in season 1.
He did.
That
for
was
one episode.
That was my man during that time, so you knew I like it. But what I love about Tim Allen is he is a conservative actor, and he has not made that a secret. So if you are a conservative, it's such a great show.
It's so funny.
It's so hilarious, and it's wholesome.
It really is.
It's a cute show that you can, like, my dad can confidently put that show on with younger me when that first show first came out, and knew that there was not going to be anything bad in it. And
there's always a lesson taught in every show.
Yeah. That
I really like. Like Boy Meets World always teaches a lesson in a show, and in Last Man Standing, he's like does like this video camera for his show he does like a vlog for his store, and he always is teaching a lesson.
Yeah,
he'll like talk in the beginning and he'll talk at the end, and it's like cool how they resolve the issue or whatever.
We're big Tim Allen fans in our house. Our favorite, one of my dad and I's favorite Christmas movie to watch together is the Santa Claus 2.
Why 2?
That's our favorite one to watch. I don't know why, but that's our favorite. Like, we love all 3 of them.
I love the third one was a little much for me. I love the first one. That's
for us,
classic.
For me and my dad, Santa Claus 2, then the Santa Claus, and then Santa Claus 3.
Ugh.
I love Santa Claus 1, but something about Santa Claus 2. That just, to me, I was so scared of that film. And then one year we watched it and I fell in love with it. And then that's just been our tradition every year. But anyways, continuing on.
The Middle. We both love The Middle.
They go to Disney World in that.
They go to Disney. They go to Disney in basically every show that's owned by Disney. And overall, they are owned by Disney. So, I love The Middle. That is a show that we watched all of it growing up. I watched that in my household. My mom and I know. I remember when the last season came out, and we were waiting for Sue to finally get her mans in the end of season 8. And I remember we were watching every episode and we're like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? And that's just a great family show. And
it is. It's funny.
Patricia Heaton, the mom in The Middle, is a Christian too, and so
she's
love
in
that
Everyone
show.
Loves Raymond too.
Yes, she is.
That show is so funny because it's
the dad in that show too?
No, the dad is from Mean Girls.
I know he's in Mean Girls.
Oh,
hold on.
Were you wondering if he was a Christian?
No.
Oh, I don't know. Anyways, what I love about The Middle is, again, I think it's funny because they are middle class, but they almost like up the poorness factor. But there's elements in it that I feel like every middle class family can relate to, and I just think that I don't know, it's so funny. And there's just certain moments in it, because it's obviously a comedy, but there's certain moments in it that's just like, it's just so good. And I love Axel's character, super lazy, but there's a few times where he sticks up for Sue, and I'm just like, yes, Axel, be that big brother.
Man, that show ran
for a while.
10 years.
Ran for a long time.
Holy wow.
Yeah. And
that ended the year I graduated high school, and it started when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think also I related to Sue in a lot of ways. But the thing is
awesome.
With Sue is she almost has this confidence to her, because she is not a popular girl.
She has the confidence. She don't care. She's got all the confidence.
I know. When she gets her braces off.
Bruh.
It's so funny.
I love that show. One of my favorite clips of all time in that show, and you might know what I'm talking about, you might not. And my family and I literally watched it so much because it made us cry laugh.
Yeah.
When she tries out for cross country, but she got hit by the deer.
Yes.
So she's crutching along, and they're like, "You got it, Barb. Barb. And they're like, "Her name is Sue." And she's like crutching, and she's crawling to the end to make cross country. It's literally that whole sequence is hilarious.
I love it. I will say, not to bring up Disney again, but my favorite Sue moment is when she keeps her hand on the car to win the free trip to Disney, and she gets like sunburnt to a crisp.
Dude, she is so lucky. She wins so many contests throughout that whole show. It's hilarious.
Yes.
Oh no, did I just do that? Okay, no, I didn't. I thought I totally just deleted the note that we had.
Another one that we put, I'll talk on this one really fast. I looked up on a couple different websites to see what other people's opinions were for some clean shows for Christians, and someone said Once Upon a Time. I can see that to a point. The later seasons start to get really dark, and there is magic in it. So if you are not necessarily wanting witchcraft or things, I don't necessarily know if this is going to be the show for you, but I feel like when it comes to terms of cleanness, there's no nudity, things like that, is a very good family show. It takes a twist on fairy tale stories. The first 2-3 seasons of that show is so
I would agree.
Done.
I watched that show, I think, until the 4th season.
There is only one episode in the entire series where they deal with a gay character, and it was so
wasn't it like later on though?
It was like season 5, and it had nothing to do with the plot. Honestly, you could probably skip that episode, but I will say there's a character called the Dark One that does dark magic, but I feel like that show almost is about redemption, and it's about hope, and it's about these villain characters having a good side. It's like you watch it, I don't want to give too much away, but you watch the Evil Queen, for instance. Her character arc is so beautiful.
You get to see a lot of super cool character arcs, and it's also cool because you get to see fairy tale characters that you grew up knowing, and you get to see them portrayed, and it's just super cool. Fun. That whole show is awesome.
Fun fact, the guy who plays Hook, he's my favorite character. We have the same birthday. January 26th. Pretty cool. Okay.
All right. Next? The next one, The Chosen.
Avi.
Okay. If you know what The Chosen is, literally about Jesus, and it follows Bible stories, literally the life of Jesus.
It's cool to watch it visually.
Oh yeah. So the thing is, I watched I've only seen 2 episodes. I've seen the first 2 episodes of the show because I watched it with my friend 2 years ago. And then I forgot it existed because it wasn't on anything, but it's on Netflix now. Yeah. So, but literally the second episode made me cry. So it's super cool to see that come to life. And it's the guy who, if you've seen Jesus Revolution, played Lonnie Frisbee. He plays Jesus in the show.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And then we have 2 more left.
This is a reality show, but I think this is one of the best reality shows you can watch, Duck Dynasty.
Yes.
I loved that show growing up. That was another show every week. We watched it together as a family. And what I love most about that show is every episode ended with a prayer.
You show them They show them praying at the dinner table.
Yep. I know and all the controversy that's with that show and with that family is all because they have been very vocal about their beliefs on certain topics, which Nina and I can both agree that we agree with. And actually, there's a movie coming out, or it might be out right now, about Phil Robertson and his wife. And I don't know how long it's going to be in theaters, but it looks so good, and I definitely want to go see it. But they are such a great family. I still follow them, I know, and support them. I think Sadie Robertson, who's close to our age, she came to Olivet. Joan and I went and saw her preach. I think it's just so cool to see what God has done with that family, and it was so nice to have a show that I could watch that was a quote-unquote reality show. Obviously it was scripted to a point, that showed Christian beliefs and showed them talking about church and all of that, and their story is beautiful. They have so many podcasts. You need to, if you haven't ever watched any of Duck Dynasty, watch the show, but then read their books, listen to their podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's so good.
And then our last one is Blue Bloods.
Love that show.
My parents love
My dad
this
loves
show.
Blue Bloods. Is it still on? It's still on, right?
I don't think they ended. There's literally 13 seasons of the show.
I think it's still on because I think I still see it
I
on
don't
the
think that
DVR.
they're coming back for another season.
Oh no, my dad will be sad.
Oh no.
I just recently started Blue Bloods not too long ago, and the thing with Blue Bloods, it's kind of similar to like Criminal Minds, where you can watch a random episode, you may not fully be in the plot.
They are coming back for another season. It's just not coming back in the fall.
Oh, probably because of the strike.
Yeah, they are having a season 14 from what I'm understanding.
But it's kind of like you should watch in a chronological order, but it almost is like Criminal Minds, where if you watch a random episode, it talks about different cases and different things like that. And I think it's a good show. It shows wholesome family dynamic.
When I looked it up, because I wanted to be sure, it's literally, because it's all about a family of cops, and Tom Selleck is like the main guy, which is but
played Richard in Friends.
Yes. When I looked it up, it says that there is 0 sex, nudity, anything, which I did know, but I also says that the language is like non-existent to very mild.
Yeah.
Which is awesome to see in a TV show. And that's like a very popular show as well. I remember watching that like myself, and I know my parents like were catching up, so they were rewatching everything, because we used to watch it when it was on TV. And then we didn't for a while. And so my parents were catching up, and they love that show too.
If you like true crime or like Law and Order SVU or Criminal Minds, which I feel like those shows are somewhat okay. I feel like this one's a little less graphic.
Oh,
if I
for
remember
sure.
Correctly.
Yeah.
You'll like Blue Bloods.
To me, Criminal Minds can get really intense.
It can get really intense.
And like so can Law and Order. That's why I don't watch those shows. To me, this is more of like, I think Psych and The Mentalist are way milder than those shows.
Yeah.
And I would loop Blue Bloods in with that. I think they're really mild. Like, yeah, you're going to see some blood, and so probably see people getting shot or whatever, like you do in a cop show, but not in like a bad, disgusting, gross way.
But it'll get that like fix.
It won't be super graphic.
Yeah. It's like, I love Law and Order SVU, but that show, I can't watch too much of that show at once. It will make me very fearful, and it will make me I don't know. It's a lot at once. And so I like Blue Bloods, that it gets my fix of like that true crime, but it's also not as cray-cray.
Yeah.
But yeah. So those are some recommendations we have, at least for TV shows. Maybe we'll do another one of these with like our favorite like, movies or something.
Oh man, I got a plethora. Man.
Oh, same. But thanks for letting us ramble on to you guys.
For sure, for 42 minutes.
Yeah. We're going to go worship the Lord.
So we hope you have a wonderful and blessed week, y'all.
We'll see you next week after. Oh, yeah. Next week, next time you hear from us, Nina will be a new age. Yes, you will.
Wait, hold on.
You will. Because this is going to come out.
Oh, yeah, because of when it comes out. So this episode comes out
and then the next
the 9th and the
16th.
You're right. So the next episode, I will be 24.
She'll be a new age.
Wild.
Wish her an early birthday.
My birthday is on October 15th. So
Alrighty,
it'll be on Sunday.
We love you guys.
All right. Peace and blessings, y'all.
Boy.